All right, everybody. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Select Board and the Advisory Board, 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. This meeting is being recorded by Marshfield Community Media. Is there anybody else in the audience recording the meeting? I see none. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't have any comments tonight. Charlie, do you have anything? Is there a town administrator report?
I'll be doing a big one shortly, so I'll hold on.
Yeah. Public comments from anybody? I see none. Tonight, we're going to be taking up 4 action items: review and discussion of the FY 2027, FY 2031 revenue forecast, town and school operating budget, review and discussion enterprise funds, FY 27 direct costs, review and discussion master budget document for FY 27, review and discussion special town meeting and annual town meeting warrant articles. Charlie, is there anything you want to add in regards to this process? Like, when you're going through it, people ask when they should be asking questions and all that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would say, as Meg and I go through this exercise, anytime there's a question is a good time to ask it. So go ahead and stop and interrupt. I'd like to give just a little bit of an overview of where we've been over the last several weeks. I think it might help the public a little bit.
Yeah, especially where we're a little overdue on doing
Yeah,
it, so.
yeah. So obviously, I think a lot of people know I was supposed to leave employment of the town of Marshfield on January 20th. Now I've stayed on. Peter and I have stayed on, and we're going to share the position of town administrator. And Peter will be working on the capital budget, but I'll be working more on the operating budget as we in the annual town meeting warrant as we go along. Now, even though I was away for a vacation for the last month, I was working remotely, working closely with Meg, and we've had a number of issues that we've been having to deal with. And the first more significant issue is the operating budget, the departmental operating budgets. And really, it's fair to say that what we inherited and what we started with needed a complete reconstruction of the operating budget. And so we've had meetings with just about every single department head, board, or committee, and we're recreating operating budgets with a lot of detail. And the whole idea is we want to create more accountability, more transparency, and we want to build these budgets so that they have longevity to them. So, when you hire a full-time town administrator, Peter and I are gone, that you'll have systems in place that will work going forward. So that has been really challenging, particularly on the salary side, I would say, because we have a lot of specialty pays, we have a longevity, we have education reimbursement, besides just wages. And we really want to get these documents right because it's the foundation as we build the operating budget. Now, while I was away, Meg, Melissa Morrissey, our treasurer collector, Danielle Galligan, our HR director, have been working to really get a high degree of accuracy, but it's taken time to go through this exercise. And I would say that we're at a point where we still have some work to do, but we're sort of getting to the tail end of that process. And so the whole idea is when the select board and the advisory board sit down to meet with departmental supervisors, you'll have a lot of detail on their budget, so you can ask questions and understand what they're doing from a programmatic standpoint. The other part of the budgetary process that has been difficult for us is you've had a lot of operating costs that have been funded through special one-time appropriations, warrant articles at town meeting. but they really are annual operating costs. So we're trying to fold all of the operating costs into the operating budget. And the other thing is, and even in the operating budgets as we understood them, there were a lot of departments that had costs that really were affiliated with their operation that were in other budgets. So we've been unraveling this process and sort of meeting with department heads to make sure that we're putting the cost centers where they belong. So, my absence didn't help, but more so, I think it's been, we're trying to create something that's more reflective of, best practices in local government today. So that's sort of an overview of the journey that we've been on. Now, I would say that, starting anytime now, the advisory board and the select board should really start meeting in earnest with their departments, not only to review their operating budgets, to review their warrant article requests. I'll talk about the warrant at the end in a little bit more detail, but, while I was away, that was one thing that I did work pretty heavily on, along with Ashley in the select board's office, was a huge help. That we really wanted to give the advisory board and the select board a warrant so that they could look at the details of these requests as you're, considering these matters that are coming before you. So anyway, I think the foundation is in place for you to go forward with the process. Now I'd like to, unless there's any questions about that, I'd like to go ahead and give you an update on the financial forecast. Now, we've given everybody an electronic copy of that. Meg has that available for the public on the screen. But this document is a document that we've walked through before with you. And I'm just going to go through a number of points that are different than the past. Now, on that first section where it talks about tax levy, that top of that first page, there's a few things that we're still dealing with. On the debt exclusion side, we still need to finalize numbers for the Martinson School roof project. It's not that hard, we just haven't had time to work on it. But I'll be working with the school officials and our financial advisors and our treasurer collector to finalize that. So that's excluded debt. It's not going to make the deficit any greater or lesser, but we do need to finalize those numbers. But it does affect the tax rate for people, so that's why we want to work to get a little more definition on that. The other issue that on that first block, on that first section that you're looking at, that's different from the meetings that we've had in January or February, I can't remember, what is the indirect costs. We're going to talk about the indirect costs as a separate section later on, but that has been a point of conflict here in Marshfield for a long time. We've had 2 or 3 meetings with the commissioners of public works and staff to look at the indirect cost issues. But I think we're really, really close to having something that can stand the scrutiny and more importantly, be done in a manner that's in accordance with the Massachusetts Department of Revenue handbook for indirect costs. Now, the indirect costs have gone down by almost $90,000 off the top of my head from what I last, the $137,000. So they were going down anyway when I made our presentation, but we'll go into this a little bit later, that why specifically those indirect costs. But anyway, more importantly, we feel like we're doing the indirect costs in an appropriate manner that's fair to taxpayers and fair to ratepayers, and that's the purpose of that exercise. So anyway, those are the significant items that are addressed in that first tax levy section. Now, when we get into these shared costs, down in the next section, it starts with overlay. And I think I talked to you, overlay reserve is money that we put away to fund abatements, when people find abatement applications or exemptions that they're allowed under the law. And exemptions had been underfunded for a number of years here in Marshfield. And when you do that, then you have to raise it the next year on, as a deficit on the tax levy. So we've really made an effort to correct all of these shortfalls, inconsistencies, and what I consider problems in this process. But you can see we've increased the overlay reserve by $324,000. But that's reflective of how much money the assessors need to deal with abatements and exemptions. So anyway, the next section, the debt exclusion, debt service, really hasn't changed much or anything, I guess. So that number has changed, except we still need to deal with the Martinson School roof project. Now, the cherry sheet, whether it be the assessments or the offsets, these are different because they reflect Governor Healy's budget numbers that she released in House 1. So these are good numbers. So that's that issue. As I've already talked, now the South Shore Regional Vocational Tech, it's another issue that you all know is a huge concern and a big part of the budget issue that we're dealing with. And you can see that we have a new number in there for the South Shore Vocational Tech, and that is a real number that's been provided by the superintendent of schools as of February 26th, the $1,266,454. So that number is real, and it's a big part of the problem that we're dealing with. We'll talk about that a little bit more detail later on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Now, the only other issues that we're really still waiting on are some of the benefit numbers. Healthcare is still soft, so we're still dealing with those. Under that, I want to bring attention to that financial reporting software, $388,000. That's a new expense that we've built into the town budget because it wasn't, that wasn't built in as an operating cost. It truly is an operating cost. There was a special appropriation of over $1 million a few years ago that was supposed to be for the implementation costs, but the town was using those implementation monies to pay for the operating costs. Those monies are largely exhausted now. So, you know, it's a real problem, but we need, you know, we're not getting rid of financial software. We need to build that into the budgetary process. Yeah, trying to look at more significant items here. You know, I've talked about the reserve fund. It's been $100,000 for a few years, and you know, I worked in a town in Cape Cod Brewster for a long time, and my reserve fund down there was $125,000, and it was probably about 60% of the size of Marshfield. So my goal would be that you continue to increase the reserve fund towards a target of maybe $200,000. But anyway, we've increased it by $50,000 in this budget process, so that's an area that I think we need to build up on. Now, that next section, the facilities budget, you can see that's increased by that $631,000. And it was the same thing in the facilities budget. You were funding sort of half of the facilities budget in the operating budget each year, and then you were going back to town meeting in the fall and using free, and Meg will correct me when I'm wrong here or there, but you're using free cash to fund the facilities budget. Well, it's not a one-time special appropriation. It has to be built into your operating budget because it's an annual operating cost. You wouldn't do it in the fire department, you wouldn't do it in the police department, you shouldn't do it in the facilities department. Snow and ice, that number is pretty constant. I will say that we know snow and ice is already in a deficit. The select board and the advisory board already authorized deficit spending for that account. I'd say in the next week or so, we're gonna have a better idea of the status of our snow and ice budget, but I don't need to tell you, it's gonna be substantive, right? Now, the non-excluded debt, $3,501,000. Those are, you have a lot of excluded debt, fire station, the high school, many other projects that you got special permission from the voters to do. You temporarily increased your tax levy to pay the principal and interest payments on that debt until they expire, and then the taxation authority goes away. You've done a lot of non-excluded debt, and it's $3.5 million. So you think about it as you've been using your tax levy money that I feel should be allocated to your operating budget for one-time capital projects, and you've been paying for them over 10 or 15 or 20 years. So I am going to come back to the non-excluded debt because I think it might be part of the solution when we get to the end of this. But, I think it's a practice that you should largely stay away from. You either use free cash or you get permission from voters, either whether it's a special capital override or a debt exclusion. We went through this conversation when I walked in the door on the Martinson School roof. Should that be a debt exclusion or should we use free cash? Hindsight's 20/20, but we now know that you could never have afforded to pay for the Martinson School roof project without an override. And, I think that these are the cases where you have to go to voters and ask them permission to do these projects.
I just want to say something on that, is that, I know there's quite a few people asking me, hey, we can use free cash, and I'm like, winter's not even here yet. I was like, if we have a bad winter,
Yeah.
we're gonna be in trouble if we use free cash.
Yeah.
So, I know everybody's opposed to doing another debt exclusion, which I certainly understand, but the roof needs to be done.
Yeah,
But if we have a bad winter, in which we've had a bad winter, I think we'd be looking at a whole different ballgame right now
Yeah,
if we try to use free cash on that roof, so.
it would have been devastating if this isn't bad enough, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a very good point. All right, then I'm going to jump to the next page. As I say, we still have some allowances in here for the general insurance. We're still working on the details of that number. Now, the pension number is a huge number. Your pension assessment through Plymouth County Assessment is in the range of $11 million, $11,045,000. That's our estimate. So that's that number is based upon a 10% increase over FY '26, and we are still waiting for the final number from Plymouth County. I keep almost saying Barnstable County because that's my universe, but from Plymouth County. Now, the Select Board did send a letter off to Plymouth County, along with a number of other towns in this area, asking for a delay in the schedule for paying off that unfunded liability. We haven't heard back yet. So, the 10% is an estimate. I'm hopeful that they might extend the period whereby we have to satisfy this unfunded liability. But the fact of the matter is, Massachusetts communities are in a lot better shape today than they were back in the mid-'80s with the unfunded liability. In Plymouth County, of which Marshfield is a member of, is 70% funded. So you're well on your way to a fully funded pension system, and if we have to delay that funding schedule by a few more years, I don't think it would be the worst situation in the world. So that's one area of hope that we might save some money in that area.
Historically, what amount of delay do they historically?
Well,
You may not know.
Yeah, I've seen them do 5 or 6 years in the past. So it's not totally unreasonable to think that that might be an opportunity. And I forget when it's going to be fully funded, was that? Yeah, 20, even under the current funding schedule, 2032, you're 100% funded. So extending that a few more years, I think might be helpful for us today. And as I say, the funding schedule started in 1988. That's when we approved the new pension reform legislation in Massachusetts. So it's taken all of this time to get to this point, and if it's a little bit longer, it's not the end of the world.
Charlie, in regards to the pension and our obligations to it, like Meg was mentioning, the estimated time to have it fully funded 2032. So let's put it this way. Let's say we get to 2032 and we've met our obligations. What kind of reduction are we looking at that point in regards to what we owe our pension obligations?
You know what, that's a great question. We can find that out, but it's going to be hundreds. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's several $100,000 that assessment could go down by. So we will find that out for you.
Yeah, because I mean, if we could forecast that, you know,
Yeah.
without any hiccups in regards to what we've already requested in regards to kind of delaying it now, but at least that way we have an outlook, hey, there's going to be a little bit of money waiting for us at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would be helpful news from the budgetary process. We'll get that number for
Yeah,
both.
so it'll probably line up with some of our debt exclusion will drop off in those years, I think,
Well, yeah, I want
as
to
long as
talk.
we don't add on to it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's okay, right, to add on to your debt schedule. You want to kind of you want to do it as you're retiring debt, so you can keep that tax burden to people, you know, sort of managed. But I think the other thing that would be worthwhile, well, Meg and I will give you an updated forecast looking out for the next over 5 years, and that'll be interesting for you to look at your retired debt status. So another important thing for both boards to sort of think about as you come up with some ideas on solving this problem. So, yeah. All right, well, we'll make sure you get all that information. The next area that's still a mystery is employee health insurance. You can see that's up $1,205,000. We've projected it at $9,481,000. That's a 14% increase over the current rates, and I don't think we're going to see much savings there. It's really desperate, right, in the private sector and the public sector, what's going on in health insurance costs. So I'm just hoping that it won't be higher than that. So anyway, and by the way, Peter Moran, who's the co-town administrator, will be going to a meeting on both the pension and the healthcare costs in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have more information real soon. Peter and I sort of been trying to divvy up who's doing what, so we're not doing the same thing. Unemployment, I'm just looking at the critical ones. Unemployment is another area we just feel like it's underfunded, and we know it's underfunded. It was $40,000 last year. We're trying to get it up to $150,000. So these are all these incremental costs that are driving this problem, besides some of the issues I looked with best practices and budgeting. So,
Charlie, can I ask you a quick question about
yeah,
that?
of course.
So if it was budgeted like 50,000, 40,000 now, you're saying it's underfunded, and it's 150,000.
Yeah.
Before, did we go over budget?
The problem was the unemployment bill.
What?
That, the issue was the unemployment bill was not paid.
So it wasn't paid?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, and if you, yeah, I'm glad you asked the
that's
question.
not a good thing. So,
And that's that bill that we have that I mentioned for $700,000, which is
Mhm.
outstanding unemployment bills for the last several years. And of that $700,000, about 160 is penalties and interest. And we are working with the state to try to get some relief for that. So they weren't paying it, and our liabilities were accruing with the state with interest and penalties.
So you're trying to work it out with the state to get it right?
Yeah,
Get it
and,
set.
and then when you start to look at the detail of the warrant in the special town meeting, I have a budgetary transfer article to fund a number of liabilities. Snow and ice is gonna be one,
Sure,
but pension is gonna be a big one.
okay.
So, yeah,
Well, the unemployment, we're gonna square up this year on this year's budget, right? So, we're out of that hole that we're in, right?
yeah, we have no choice but to
Yeah, you have to.
solve that problem.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, Peter is actually, is working with our legislators on that issue.
Thank you.
And he knows your legislative folks up in this neck of the woods better
Sure.
than I do. So he's better equipped to, so if it gets messed up, I want you to blame Peter, is my point.
It's on the record.
Yeah, okay. So those are some of the challenges. So anyway, I think I'm gonna sort of drop down a little bit here, because I want to get to the finish line on this conversation. And if you look at where it says town fiscal '27 projected budget, school fiscal '27 projected budget, and we have the town budget at $29,220, and the school at $60,376,000. That's a $500,000 deficit. That's the deficit adjusted a little bit that Meg and I presented.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was the number from when the revenue forecast was presented. The only change at that point, it was 4.5 million. It's just that the changes were to the shared costs. That's what caused it to go up to 5 million.
yeah. So I wanted to just,
Can you explain shared costs?
yeah,
The shared costs would be all the items above, so that would be starting with South Shore Regional VOTEC all the way through the unemployment. All of those are deemed to be shared costs.
Why would South Shore VOTEC be a shared cost? Doesn't that fall under the select board?
Well, from a budget perspective, because you're taking all of your revenues and then you're subtracting out your shared costs to come to the number that's available to be split between town and school.
Right.
yeah. So, but I think right now, the critical point is when we met last to go over the forecast, that $5,001,000 was sort of the deficit at that time. And that's when Meg and I made some rough estimates on the operating budget, on the expense budget. Now, what we've done over the last 6 weeks has been, we've been working with the town and the school budgets to say, what is the budget request really versus Charlie and Meg's guesstimate? And so that's that new section where it has the town budgets at $29,641,000, I'm rounding a little bit. And the school budget's at $62,359,000. That's the town and school budget as of today. It's not the final school budget, it's not the final town budget, but it's the budget that is, exists at this moment. I know the schools are still working on it, we're still working on the town, but, so if you take those numbers that we know are more refined and more accurate, the budget deficit is now $7,406,000. I just wanted to show you the mechanics of how this worked, and we wanted to show you the past and the current. Anything, Meg, you want to add, or that I missed? Yeah. So that's, it's obviously devastating, right? But as I say, now we have to dig into the budgets. We have to wait for some more refinements and numbers. I do have some ideas that aren't going to solve the problem, that might help it, but, this is sort of the conditions that we have to be keenly aware of today. And I think the other thing is, let's face it, I always said, when I kind of make fun of myself and Peter, is having an interim town administrator is not the best place in the world, but it's the place you're in. I was on vacation, you get all these variations. We had to reconstruct the budget. This is late. And there's a few things we need to start to think about, not decide today, is, I know, can we get all this work done, get the warrant finished for an April 27th, 2026 annual town meeting? It's possible, but it's gonna be a challenge. And so one of the idea, you did it last year, you delayed your annual town meeting. I think we should try to avoid that. But I do want to just put it out there for consumption and a thought process as we go through this exercise. I'm going to talk a little bit about the budgetary process a little later on, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
I mean, I guess, would it be right to say that putting the budget together is one thing, and not an issue, I guess just a question of how to resolve the debt issue that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And that's how, I think that, would be correct in saying that's what we have to work through in order to right this ship, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to go through a budgetary review process myself now that I'm back and work with Meg. We'll meet with all the department heads again, and we will give you some recommendations for reduction. I don't think my process is going to get us to zero. So it is going to take, and the fact of the matter is, I'm not a resident here. I'm not a permanent town official. Some of the more deeper cuts that you might have to make to solve this deficit, I think should be done at a policy level involving the select board and the advisory board. So, it's not something that Charlie can do and Peter can do alone. It's got to be a collaborative effort. I will say to you, my instinct is you need an override, an operating override. Now, does it have to be $7.4 million? It doesn't. It could be any number in between. I think it's going to be hard to get to reduce the entire deficit without really devastating impact on your operating budgets and the school budget. But that's the exercise that we're about to go through. I could be wrong. Now, just for a price point, what does $1 million override, I wanted to give you an increment. What does $1 million override cost a taxpayer? Because this is taxpayer money. $1 million override for a $750,000 home, which is about your average valuation, would be $171. So it's not insignificant. And if you say, oh, we'll just get an override for $7 million, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, put on top of all the debt that we currently have
Yeah.
as well. So that 171 times whatever everybody's paying for on debt exclusions and everything else like that, so.
Yeah.
And this would be an operating override, so the whole thing is that there will be no timeline on it, right? It could just carry through,
Yeah.
right?
So, and I think too is, one of the just unusual thoughts I've had is I'd mentioned earlier in the presentation that you have a lot of non-excluded debt, $3.5 million in non-excluded debt. If you had, hindsight's 20/20, right? If you had had a disciplined process of only using free cash for projects, or going to voters and say, hey, we want to fix these windows, we want to put this roof on, we need a debt exclusion to pay for that. That $3.5 million would be available for the operating budget today. So you've been stealing from the operating side for the capital debt side, in my mind. It is one tool you could think about is it possible to go back and exclude the non-excluded debt? It would free up $3.5 million for the operating budget. And, it still costs taxpayers money to do that, but it's a spending authority because it's a debt exclusion that will expire when the principal and interest are paid off on that. So it might be a middle ground to think about as you're thinking about strategies on some of these matters.
You did a pretty good job explaining, I think, as we're all sitting with the options here, what, for example, what a $1 million override looks like. So on this other path we could take, when you're talking about sliding around excluded versus not excluded. Generally, I'm not looking for like crunched numbers. What does that impact look like, David?
Well,
I mean, it's a lot of rejiggering.
it is sort of, think about it, it's $3.5 million. So
Like that, yeah.
it's $171 times 3.5 times.
I think it's important to just make that very clear.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is, listen, I understand this is a lot of money for homeowners, for taxpayers, for citizens. So I think there's no one solution. I think you have to make cuts, you have to reduce costs, but I don't know, I think it's gonna be hard to get to zero.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is you have to either reduce cost or increase revenue. I mean, that's pretty much the only way.
Yeah,
I mean, unless you borrow against it and then you work way to pay that out, right? But,
yeah.
yeah.
That'd be hard. And I think, and I'm glad you made that point, is one of the other exercises we are going through is taking a look at local receipts. We know local receipts has been overutilized, and we've had to cut back on local receipts substantively when Meg and I put this plan together, because you didn't have enough local receipts to meet the estimated collections. So we've cured that problem. It's a little painful. But one of the other things, we are working with department heads to look at their fees. And even, for example, the select board don't quite know this yet, I've taken a look at like licensing fees, liquor licenses, common victualer's license. Had a preliminary meeting with Eric because I want to get it on the agenda. And our fees are low, in my opinion, compared to the survey we've done with our neighboring towns. Now, I was gonna bring like a multi-year plan to the select board to increase our licensing fees. Now, how much money is that? I don't know, it's maybe $25,000 or something. But even like the building department, I think our fees are low. We are doing a survey of our corresponding communities to see what their fees are, and that's something that we might bring to the select board. So is there a way to look at local receipts to maybe come up with several $100,000? I think it's possible.
Sure.
So a revenue on that side would help the problem as well. So, I'm glad, thank you for mentioning that. I meant to include that.
Oh, Peter, I still has a question.
Jack?
Jack Griffin, Chair of the Capital Budget, 89 Beach Street. Charlie, in the bottom, you had $29 million, I think, for the ask for the town's expenses.
Yeah,
Does that include the capital budget items?
no,
So you can add $15 million on that. If we were to give everything, that'd be $44 million. And then the deficit goes even another $15 million up there. That's incredible.
only if you recommend that spending. So, I'm gonna talk about the warrant at the end,
Okay.
and I definitely want to touch upon
I
that.
have one more question on the unemployment. Did we have to pay unemployment during the COVID? You still had to pay during COVID?
Meg, do you know?
So there was, I think this was universal with a lot of communities, there was a lot of fraud and unemployment during COVID. So I think that that's where the issue had started, is
That's
that
what
there
I
were a
was
lot of
thinking.
claims. And I think that there was probably a plan at some point to research and challenge some of those charges. And
Yeah. Could that number be decreased because of the COVID years instead of the, whatever, the
I think it's all worth
150,000?
investigating, because it could be.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, those are good points that we are working on, so, yeah. And I will get back to the capital budget in a moment, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, it's okay.
Any guys have, any other questions from you guys? Advisory board?
Yeah, I just have one question. On the funds that we have allocated to the bank, do we earn any interest on that?
Yeah, so within local receipts is investment income, and it's a substantive, Meg would know the number about,
It's over $1 million, yeah.
yeah. And actually, we hadn't had a chance to, Meg has been tracking local receipts for the current fiscal year, where we are in our collections versus what we estimated. And investment income continues to look pretty good. She sent me a report when I was away. But anyway, I think that's maybe an area, even with the advisory board, that maybe we should go over local receipts. We'll go over that chart that Meg has put together. So, anyway,
Andrew, you got a name and address, Andrew?
Yeah, Andrew Stewart, the building commissioner.
oh,
I
there
just,
you are.
I just wanted to reiterate what you said about the fee increase with the building department. So I have been doing a bunch of research on this into other towns, what they've got. And just now, just before the thing, I was doing some Excel work and figured that if we just increased our regular residential building permit fees to match the surrounding towns, and we increased our commercial fees to slightly exceed what's around the other towns, since we have a little bit more commercial zone than they do. Just by evaluating the residential permits, the commercial permits, and the 3 ADU permits that we did in FY '25, if we had done those permit fees in FY '25, just those, and we're not talking electrical, gas, all those, we would have had an extra $176,872. So I feel like by doing a fee evaluation, and this is an average year, this isn't even including like the Mill Creek project and all the big number years. So just on an average year, I think we could have increased our fees by about $200,000.
It's a chunk.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew, get on that. So- Andrew and I have been talking, so I do appreciate his work on it. Okay, are we okay, all set in this section?
I think so.
Okay. The next one is on our agenda is the enterprise fund fiscal '27 indirect costs. And Meg, I'm gonna save my voice. Do you mind kind of covering this one for me? And I'll jump in afterwards, but anyway.
So on the screen is a copy of our indirect cost allocation template formula. It's different than what has been done in the past. In the past, it was a much more complicated formula. There have been discussions about trying to simplify the process, and it is something that's recommended by Department of Revenue. It doesn't need to be an overly complicated process. Their recommended process is to do it as a percentage of budget for any expenses or any budget lines that would be shared between the town side and then the enterprise funds. So in the top section, those would be the expenses, and the calculation was done, percentage of budget was determined in accordance with Department of Revenue. You take the budget less net debt service, and then you would determine the share between town, school, and enterprise funds. So you can see at the top over on the right, sewers 2.13%, water's 3.10%, and then solid waste is 1.45%. So we took those percentages and then applied it to a series of budget lines that are shared. For example, moderator, because moderator, town meeting, many articles related to enterprise funds. Select board salaries and select board expenses. The salaries were mainly for the office and for town administrator. The expenses, it's not the full select board expenses, it's just strictly for town meeting annual report expenses and for the cost of postage. And the postage is related to a lot of the town clerk mailings and the accounts payable invoices. The next part is for accounting salaries and expenses, because accounting is heavily involved with processing anything related to enterprise funds. The expenses, again, it's just stripped down to what the costs are for EP, for the audit, and for OPEB valuation. It does include a portion for assessor salaries and assessor expenses, treasurer collector salaries, treasurer collector expenses, and just the portion that's for Zobrio and payroll processing. It includes human resources salaries, expenses, IT salaries, IT expenses, and that, we had to add in that cost for Munis. Town clerk salaries and expenses, again, just related to town meeting. Election salaries and expenses, because there can also be, there's elections for the Board of Public Works, could be, debt that's involved. Facilities salaries, utilities expenses, which is just strictly supposed to be for DPW building, highway garage, and streetlights. Initially, we had a portion it was the DPW admin salaries and engineering salaries were split, but in discussions with DPW, we had determined that that would only work if we were budgeting the full amount in the general fund. We're not, right now, they're budgeting a quarter in the general fund, a quarter to each enterprise fund. So we removed that part of the equation. Snow and ice salaries and expenses, automotive fuel expense, maintenance salaries and expenses. But for the maintenance expenses, we are charging the cost of direct repairs for enterprise vehicles to the enterprise fund budgets. This is just meant for any inventory that could be shared across all departments. Other debt services, and then general property and liability insurance. So any of the expenses that were scooped up here, it's because we can't, it's not a distinct expense. So like going back to the example of maintenance, if there's work done on vehicles and we can identify an invoice that's specifically for an enterprise fund vehicle, we can send them the invoice. These are all items that you can't really, it's not a distinct expense that you can say this part is enterprise fund, this part is the general funds, so we have to do an allocation. For the bottom part, for any kind of payroll-related expenses, we took a percentage of personnel budget because what was happening is the numbers were getting pretty skewed for the transfer station because they don't have many employees, yet they do have a fairly large budget, so we boiled it down to percentage of personnel budget. And that includes retirement, employee benefits, unemployment, and Medicare. So the total indirect charges for this year is $1,611,156. And again, the charges that are not included here, and they were before, would be legal expenses, maintenance of vehicles, and actual debt service, not the cost of borrowing. So if you compare that to last year, it is a decrease of about $130,000. But this is something that is DOR approved. It's defensible in terms, if they were to question us, if the auditors were to question us, we have a methodology. It's a clean methodology. It's much easier to follow than what was done in the past.
And if I could too, I think that the Public Works Board had some, you all know, some reasonable grievances and concerns. And we really did try to listen to those issues. And we've made changes since we last talked to you all about this, because we really did want to review their issues and not reject them out of hand, but really analyze them. So, for us, it's a problem because the revenue side for the town is down. But that's a reality that we need to deal with, because this methodology, we believe, is simple and clear and fair and entirely in alignment with the Department of Revenue's guidelines. So painful, but necessary, and we would ask you to look at it, and we will meet with DPW one more time. That was delayed because I was away, but we've made a number of accommodations to address their concerns.
So, Charlie, say you're gonna meet with them, so I'm gonna be under the impression that you're gonna talk to them in regards to if they're satisfied and agreeable to this methodology that you put together?
We've met with them 2 or 3 times, but I haven't met with them since I got back. And we have made some changes, so I do want to do that.
All right, so have you,
No,
they haven't seen?
no,
it yet?
because I just, what happened is as you know, I got back and then the snowstorm, so I was under the gun and I worked Wednesday and Thursday and then today to get finished up for this. And I haven't had a chance to follow through on any
All
of
right,
those,
that's
but I
what I
will,
want to know. All right,
I will. Oh, we will.
I'd like to know, I'd like to.
I'm not going anywhere without Meg, that's all I'm telling you right now. So,
No, I just want to hear what they have to say, see if, hopefully, we could put this indirect methodology to bed, and hopefully they'll be satisfied with it.
I hope so.
So, it'll be one thing off our plate.
And Mr. Chair, did you raise your hand, Bob?
No.
Oh, sorry, okay. I thought he was gonna question the legality or something. I was like, oh my God, what is he doing? Okay, good. Okay, any questions on the indirects?
Deborah,
I think,
10 more minutes.
Someone just forgot to mute
yeah,
themselves.
so it's,
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Let me look.
Thought that was my Cindy telling me to get in my car and go home.
it's coming.
The next item is number 3. It's the master budget document for FY '27. And Meg, you want to use this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
What do you
Yep.
have? Oh, this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a little cleaner than the one we sent.
I do have a question. So the previous way that they negotiated the indirects, was that also DOR approved, DOR accepted?
It wasn't not, so DOR actually has 4 different methodologies.
Sure.
And they did a webinar recently about it, and they talked about the way that we were doing it before, and they said, you have at it, but why would you do it that way? It's way more complicated than you need to make it. And
That's interesting.
they actually suggested this as the smartest way to go.
I think the biggest, if I'm gonna say it, one of the arguments, the Board of Public Works had was that they weren't incorporating the schools into the
Schools
methodology,
is
right?
captured here.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, I think that, the concern was the schools, the concern was the transfer station portion of it because of the hauling and the transportation.
Right.
That part is like, it jacks up their budget, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
if you look at their operations, it is smaller. So we took into consideration for that. They had the concern about the DPW admin salaries and engineering salaries, and we took care of that. So I think that the major points were addressed.
And for anyone who doesn't know, right, most towns follow what the DOR recommends, which is simple percentages, and it's a 1 to 3 page policy. We've just been stuck forever on a complicated policy that's over 45 pages.
Right.
If you just think of the cost and value of our employees' time working that out, there's also a cost to that as well. So if there's a way just to hammer this out and codify it in a much simpler way moving forward, everyone's better off.
And to that point, though, too, I mean, this is the template, but there is actually a policy that the town has, so that will have to
Yes,
also
you have
be
this, and then
adjusted.
you're gonna have to have language in it, right?
We'll have
Is
to
that what
adjust the
we're at?
existing policy
Yeah.
to mirror this once, we're good with it.
All right, so I look forward to when you guys have discussions with the Board of Public Works, and then hopefully they're gonna be content with this, we move on, we put a policy together, and then this item is another thing we can take off the plate and move on, so, thank you.
Oh, master budget.
We're good? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, the review budget document for fiscal '27, this is a little different format than we emailed out.
That's not
Hmm? You all right?
Yeah.
But anyway, Meg sort of reformatted for presentation purposes. I think the only point that I wanted to make with this document is, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the meeting, is we've spent a tremendous amount of time working directly with our department heads to identify their salary and expense costs. So it's really driven from the bottom up, and that's what we wanted to accomplish here, because from what I understand, in the past, it was sort of top-down, and many times, departments heads were just given a number later in the process. And so we really tried to work closely with the department heads to make sure that we were capturing all the costs that they identified to run their department. And then the other thing is that there were a lot of budgets, you know, the select board budget, for example, had costs for some of the other boards, committees, or departments. Or, you know, IT, for example, had a lot of embedded costs that were really appropriate to the assessors or earning number of departments. So we think, you know, it's not perfect yet, but it's much more refined, and I think that we're gonna continue to work on that over the next couple of weeks. Meg?
So, I mean, the main point that I would like to make here is that these reflect the departmental requests, which is always like your step one of a budget process. So from there, that's where we have to go through and, you know, make sure there aren't errors in the calculations. Because Melissa and Danielle did work really, really hard on looking at salary calculations. That isn't reflected here yet because I wanted to present first step departmental requests. So that's what this is.
So the next version will be sort of the administration's recommendations on these budgets, and that's gonna have to happen really quickly.
Mhm.
And at the same time I'm doing that, I would want the advisory board and the select board to jump into this too.
Yeah.
Because you really, I think in this, particularly this year, you really need to know the intricate details of these budgets and talk to department heads to understand what a cut might mean in terms of service delivery and staffing. So, anyway, this is gonna happen pretty fast. But as I say, we think it's a lot better, and it's more accurate and more defined. You know, and it's kind of interesting is the, you know, the town budget, if you look at really gross numbers, is up like $2,200,000, almost 8%. But it's really not 8% because a lot of these were these costs that were being appropriated as special articles, which we just think is problematic. So we'll kind of refine these numbers so you know how much money we sort of took from one-time spending and tried to embed it in the budget, but we just haven't had time to put that all together. But we'll give you a little bit more detail on that as we go forward.
Charlie, we still plan on meeting with the departments. I mean, I know we've gone over some of the departments' budget, like the select boards, and refine that, but we also have to sit down and go through, I think, police, fire, DPW, and all that, on a line-by-line basis, right? And then we figure out any potential cost savings out of that,
Yeah.
correct? And upon that, have we set up, because we were waiting for this meeting, and then we're gonna, I believe, and then we're gonna move on that. So have we started setting up dates with these departments?
No, but as of when I get to work on Thursday, that's what we're gonna start working on. Because I had to get this done before I could think about that, but we'll start doing that next week. So at the same time, we're doing those meetings in my office, I would also ask the select board and the advisory board to start meeting with department heads as well.
No, I mean, I have as long as, depending on the dates and coordination, but, I mean, like I said, when, I think I'd met with Meg on a couple departments, and then we went over the select board and all that, and everything, all these, now we gotta go through everybody else.
Yep.
All these, that's my intention is that when we sit down, all of us, me, you, Meg, and whatever else, that's the goal, is to go through it and line by line, see what we can do with everybody's budget.
Yep, and my only point is, I want to do that, but I also want the select board to do that. You know, we'll do that internally at our level, and I want because I really want, I want to make sure both boards have a lot of knowledge about what's going on with these departments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think after we sit down and go through it all, I believe,
Yeah,
all of us need to, let's put it this way, everything that's been discussed and put forward, Trish and Steve need to be incorporated, and then
Yeah.
into it and how they feel about it as
Yep.
well. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I wouldn't wait on our process. We're gonna have to walk and chew gum at the same time, so to speak.
Yeah, well, definitely on the advisory board side, every advisory board member knows their liaison.
Great.
Their department that they're working with. Some have worked with them for a while, some have not, and some of that process has already begun. And I think having this is huge because then, obviously having the budget is huge, but we can go in, ask questions about what these numbers mean, what their must-haves are, what their nice-to-haves are, and just
Yeah.
kind of have where we are, so.
And we have a lot more detail.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
So what,
detail's huge.
yeah, so when you're meeting with them, I have their actual departmental requests, and it's got a lot of notes. It's like if an expense changed or moved, or, what it encompasses, not, I mean, if it's pretty straightforward, there's no note there, but like, there,
Right.
for other things, there are. So that just felt like it was a lot for tonight's presentation, because it was supposed to be like an overview, but the plan is as you're meeting with each department, I would be sharing those
Okay,
templates with you.
okay. Are you gonna send those to us, to me, or to us?
I can, it's
Or-
quite a few documents. But yes, I will absolutely send them to you.
Well, I'm just trying to, you're not gonna be at every one of those meetings, right? So, if we're meeting as a board, maybe, but I'm talking about as the individual
Oh.
members are gonna meet, maybe
Oh, yes.
go sit
yes.
with the chief, or go sit with the chair, the DPW.
I can send them to you tomorrow. We'll see
Right.
if they go through, and if they don't, we'll figure out a different
How
method.
many documents are we talking about?
So what it encompasses is, it's their budget request, so the summary of their budget request with notes. It is their local receipts. It is the salary calculation and their budget narrative
Okay,
for every department.
all right, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
We'll work it out.
Well, here's my thinking on that, especially what Chris just brought up in regards to the advisory board, the liaisons to certain departments. If us three and whoever else lines up a date to sit down with whatever department, should we reach out to that liaison and see if they have the availability to sit down with us, or?
That's an excellent idea. At the end of the day, that would save time probably
Yep.
For our members. Obviously, our focus too is on the warrant, and there's only so many departments that have brought forth warrant articles. So, we need definitely, we need to vote on those warrant articles, but, there's a lot of different things going on, and if that liaison could make it to that meeting, that would definitely be probably killing two birds with one stone, as they say.
So why don't we, with Ashley here and all that, let's say we coordinate, and then we line up a date, when we line up a date to meet with the departments, relay it to Chris, that way Chris can relay it to whoever the liaison is, let them know, and maybe get an answer if they can sit down with us or not at that time period, if it works out for them.
That sounds good. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, do we have a list of all the liaisons? or-
I can send it.
Yeah.
I can send it to you. I have it. I just didn't, I don't know if I sent it, so.
Oh, thank you. That's
Hold on, Jack, name and address, please.
On the utilities, is that the right number, 743?
Jack. Name and address.
Going across, and it only averaged like 160? How did we get that high?
Name and address. Name and address.
I still can't hear you.
Name
Oh,
and ad-
sorry, Jack Griffin, 89 B Street, Chair of the Capital Budget. So
Well-
I need you know what, I lost my hearing aid over there, if you ever found it.
Tonight?
But the one we were just looking at, it showed the utilities going up to $740-something thousand, where the average was around 160. Why are we going so high up on that? I know electricity and gas is going
Oh,
up.
I know, I have your explanation for you for a minute. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, so a little bit of this, this will need to be tweaked a little bit. So what I had done is I had to change the structure of the utility accounts, because before, like, the account structure was not working, it wasn't in compliance with the state statutes. So I made some changes. So the problem is that the historical data got lost in that, so that will have to be adjusted. We can correct that.
Okay.
So the number for 27 is correct.
$500,000 difference.
Right, no, that will have to be corrected.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that just scared me, I was just looking.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah.
Steve?
Steve Lynch, so is this a public hearing or just a regular public meeting?
This is a public meeting.
So you don't even have the right to speak then, right?
I don't know. Well, what do you say to that?
They can speak if they want. It's up to you all.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So anyway, Steve Lynch, 50 Central Street. So I just want to put the financial team, give them some advance notice, because when we do have the public hearing for the warrant and this budget, I think that if we're gonna put something forward, for an operational override, that you need to have a breakdown, a full sheet page, so the taxpayers know by department what their percentage of increase is, why we're having this operational override, and then break down the departments by salaries, overtime, the utilities, capital expenditures, bonding, all that stuff laid out perfectly clear for the taxpayer to understand why we have to do this and who's responsible.
100%, and that's going to be,
You're right.
that's going to be done. I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think that that was what I was mentioning to Chris, is the package that they will be receiving.
Yeah. And when we do like capital expenditures on the DPW, and bond it or whatever, that's a fee cost, right? That's not general fund. That's not part of the levy.
It's not part of the levy.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Did he say DPW or enterprise?
Well, either one for capital, it's not,
DPW.
it's not part of the operating budget.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, okay. All right, good. I'm done on the operating budget, unless there's any questions.
I don't see any.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, council had his hand raised.
Back when you were looking at the indirect cost, there was 25% to the general fund, and then there were the other 25 to the other three funds, and there were no numbers in that. And we're still waiting for those numbers?
No, those, but that was what we thought the calculation was going to be, but then talking to DPW, they're budgeting, so when they're going to do their 27 budget for DPW admin salaries and engineering salaries, they're going to budget a quarter to the general fund and a quarter to each enterprise fund. So we would not want to roll that into the indirect cost because it would be double counting it.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions on the operating budget? So if it's okay, then we'll go right into the special town meeting, special and the annual town meeting warrant. So we've given you a copy. Do you have a copy?
I have electronic, but it's not.
I'm going to give you mine at the end of the meeting, then we can share it. But
I mean, I have it electronic.
yeah, you have electronic,
Yeah,
of
I'm good.
course.
I'm good.
So I think one of the things in talking with Eric, as we sort of are going through this process, is in the past, sometimes the warrant was put together a little bit late, and it was evolutionary, but it was happening at the end of the cycle. And sometimes the select board would get the warrant to sign because the deadline was coming up, and you might not have seen all the detailed language of each and every warrant article. So when I was away, Ashley and I worked really closely, which means Ashley did more than half the work, to draft a warrant so that when you start to go through these warrant articles, you're going to see, the detailed language for each article. So when we're asking you to consider a warrant article, you'll see the language and the summary in the detailed funding requests on each and every article. Now, this needs a little bit more work on a number of areas, particularly the budgetary transfers and the capital budget. So those are the things that we're going to refine. But there's a number of articles on here that are standalone articles, and there's no reason that the select board and the advisory board can't start looking and voting on these articles. And I had talked to Chris when I was away, and the one thing I had promised Chris that I'd create a control cover sheet so where you could see all of the articles in a spreadsheet format of sort of the funding source, and then, but more importantly, the status of the voting of recommendations by the by the advisory board and the select board. I just sent that to Chris. You probably
Yeah,
haven't seen it
I
yet.
just saw it.
Yeah.
So
I only
I'll look
sent
at
it to you like at 5 o'clock.
I know, I was in the throes.
And I'll share, Eric, I've already gone over that with, but I'm going to share it with everybody. I have a little more refinement to do on it. But
Okay,
anyway, that document, and I need to work with Meg on the funding side of that. But, Meg's been more than completely busy. And this is sort of one of the things that could wait a little bit. But anyway, I think the warrant is in pretty good shape. I'm going to continue to work with some of the department heads on some of the summaries and explanations. But I think it's in pretty good shape. And if anybody sees any, I've sent it out to the department heads, I think 2 times or maybe 3 times. And I do that because they correct mistakes. They look at it and they find errors. And, to me, when I get to town meeting, I want the document, it's never going to be perfect, but I want it to be fairly close to perfect but certainly accurate. So that's the goal in this exercise is to get this thing finished, because we're going to run up against a wall where we're going to have to post this warrant. We've got time, but we have some deadlines, and Ashley and I are going to work with the town clerk's office on Thursday. I've already had a preliminary meeting with the town clerks and the town clerk staff to go over some of the critical deadlines we have for posting warrants and getting it advertised and so forth. So I'll get some more refinement on that and share that with everybody in the next few days. But anyway, I think the warrant, I hope you like the format. I've changed it a little bit, and I think it's more readable, and my goal is to have more information. Town council has already done a quick review of the first draft of the warrant and made some changes. Bob, there are quite a few, additions here. By the end of the week, I'll send you another version, just so we can clean it up even further. So. That's all I got.
Is that all you have?
That's all I got.
Does anybody have any questions? All right. So I guess we can, no more questions, I guess we can end this. And I just want to let Trish and Steve know that I think we're going to be planning a meeting, actually a couple meetings next week, just trying to work out the details in regards to the availability of the advisory board, and then us, so it might be Monday, Wednesday, because there's a ZBA meeting Tuesday night, I believe.
yes, I got back, Monday's probably gonna be the best day for.
Yeah, I want to work
us.
with what you have availability to.
I
So
appreciate
if it's
that.
Monday, we'll move the select
I
board,
just sent it
move the
out
select
to
board
you.
meeting over to Wednesday if need be.
We'll see. Yeah, I probably can do Wednesday too, but Monday's a better situation for me. But it has to make sense for the majority.
All right, you let
We'll let you guys know.
Ashley and Charlie or Peter know on that. So
Okay, cool.
We're flexible on it.
Yeah,
You guys good with that?
and for the advisory board too, my general plan is to work Monday and Wednesdays. Peter's gonna work Tuesday and Thursdays. But if you needed me at a meeting in any particular week, I would just shift my schedule. I'll work on the operating budget and the warrant. Peter's gonna be working on the capital budget matters, and collective bargaining. So that's sort of the definition. Maybe I'll send you an email so if you have questions, you're gonna wanna reach out to either one of us.
Okay.
All right. Oh, and if I could, before we close, I'm sorry, I wanted to talk, and it's related to the annual town meeting warrants, so I think this is fair game. But the capital article in here, and I know Jack, as chair of the capital planning committee, has been great about sharing information and working closely with us, and that's appreciated. But we haven't done any work on the capital budget, and the question really is, how much money are we gonna have to fund capital items, right? We have the operating budget, and we have the capital budget, and there's no way that we could say, oh, we don't have any money, we can't fund any capital needs, because there are gonna be capital needs that are unavoidable. So, Peter and Meg and I met, I think last Thursday or something, Wednesday, Peter Moran, and Peter's gonna spearhead the capital budget, but what we're going to do is take a look at free cash, right? We know we have a number of issues that are already going to impact our free cash status, and snow and ice is just frankly going to be devastating, but still, we'll probably have some free cash that we could probably use for the capital budget. And then, more importantly, we're going to take a look at every appropriation that's out there. There are a number of appropriations the town meeting have made, the monies haven't been spent. And if they're not going to be spent in the near future, we want to recapture some of those monies, claw them back, and use them to fund immediate needs that we have today. So that's another exercise that we'll go through. And I just talked to Jack at the beginning of the meeting, and I know he's been anxiously awaiting my return, and I've told him I would get together with him. But we'll go through that exercise and try to cobble together some money. And I know the capital planning committee will prioritize, requests that they have, and then they'll have to be presented to the select board and to the advisory board as well.
Does, do we have an idea of what money is out there, maybe the departments are holding on to at the moment?
Well, let me put it this way, so for capital, it's not as straightforward as this is our total and this is what we can use. You'd have to have a list of the items that you wanted to fund, because bond council has to look at them. To repurpose the funds, it has to be for a project that is, by law, the same or longer borrowing
Right.
period. So you have to go through that vetting process. You'd have to say, like, these are the things we want to fund. These are the projects we think we can close out. We go to bond council and say, which one of these can we use towards these items?
So it's a little more nuanced, but it's something that we need. Now that we've got this sort of in a better place, and this has been a tremendous amount of work, really for Meg, to get to where we are tonight, but with a lot of help from different staff people.
But
But now we'll start working on that in earnest.
I was gonna say, so now you got the monies you're looking for capital, so that's gonna be another tough task I would look at in regards to the
Yeah.
next project, right?
I mean, I would say that I think that there's two sources that are available just right off the gate. There's a premium reserve for capital account that had about $68,000 in it. And then there's an insurance recovery account that probably has maybe $100,000 in it. Not that that's the cap. Those two I know are available right off the top. If we're looking at the capital, I think what was available was about $500,000-600,000. But is that all available? We'd have to refine that a little bit further.
Jack has questions.
The only thing I was thinking of, Jack Griffin, 89 Beach Street, shared capital budget, the enterprise funds, when they have a project through that, that should automatically, there should be
Go
not
back.
too much work on
Yeah,
that.
right, exactly. Those ones are
Okay.
easy because it is always retained earnings.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you, you're right, Jack, yep. So anyway, that's sort of the next kind of piece of the puzzle that we'll start working on.
All right, we all good now?
Thank you. Well, work, I mean, not the information.
Yeah, and and on that note, I just want to say, I mean, I'm new here, I'm temporary, but, and I've said it sort of before, I've worked in a number of towns that are, as an interim, that have, has these stresses and strains and problems that they're dealing with. It's always the department heads that keep these places going. And you have a lot of good, committed department heads and staff people that have been really cooperative and helpful and, trying to help us identify solutions. So they deserve to be recognized, and it's always a pleasure and honor to work in a community, but I've met some really wonderful people here, so.
Thanks. He's talking about me.
I'm not talking about Eric. But anyway,
It's nice to be loved. All right, we all good now? All right, I want to close this meeting of the joint meeting of the Select Board Advisory Board. It's at 7:19, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. Do I have a second?
Second.
Aye?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, everybody.
No, you're fine. I know, I thought that was.
So is this me?